You did your time, turned your life around, and your record still shows up every time someone runs a background check. You keep getting rejected from jobs, housing, even dating apps. Like your past just won't let you move on. I'm Danny Izquierdo, a criminal defense attorney here in Florida, and I help people clean up their record the right way without getting stuck in months of legal red tape. In this video, I'll walk you through the fastest, most effective way to qualify for an expungement and avoid the common mistakes that can derail the process so you can finally put this behind you and stop living in fear of what shows up online and move forward with real peace of mind. Who expungement helps? Let's jump right in. See, expungement in Florida is a process that can erase a criminal record, but it's not for everyone, and the law is very specific as to who it's for and who qualifies. In general, expungement is designed for cases that ended without a conviction, but it must also mean that the charges were dropped, dismissed, no filed, or no actioned. If you were convicted, expungement usually isn't on the table. And in Florida, if you received what's known as a withhold of adjudication, you may have other options like sealing your criminal record, but that's a separate process altogether. Here's a simple way to think about this. If your case ended with the government, the prosecutor essentially saying, this is not going forward, then expungement may be possible. And if you're thinking, that sounds like my situation, stay with me, because the next part is why this can move faster than most people expect. Expungement can move fast in Florida, where most legal processes are slow. Expungement is one of those exceptions if you qualify. But the reason is simple. Florida generally allows expungement when it's clear the case should not have moved forward and it continues to haunt you on a public record. When eligibility is clean and clear, the process can become much more streamlined compared to many other court actions. This doesn't mean it's automatic. There's still paperwork that has to be done, steps that have to be followed, and all of that has to be done correctly. But when everything is filed properly, I've seen expungements wrap up in roughly 5 to 6 months, start to finish. And in the world of courts and government agencies, that's pretty fast. Here's what fast really means in real life. It means you can stop living under an old arrest every time you apply for a job, a lease, or a new opportunity. Now, let me walk you through the exact process step by step. This is a general path in Florida in order to obtain an expungement. Step 1, you obviously have to apply for an expungement and get your certificate of eligibility. That is the first key piece. You need a certificate of eligibility from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, also known as FDLE. Without this certificate, the court typically won't act on your request to have your record expunged. And before you can get that certificate from FDLE, you'll have to submit your application along with the disposition of your case to the state attorney's office for the county where your case originated from or comes from. Once you get that form back from the state attorney's office, you'll submit the application, the fingerprint form, the court disposition, and a filing fee to FDLE so that they can issue the certificate of eligibility. Remember, if you miss documents, submit the wrong version, your application can get rejected and delayed. Step 2, file the petition to expunge once you receive your certificate of eligibility from FDLE. You file your petition to expunge in the county where the case happened, and you'll file that through the clerk of courts. And you have to be sure to include the certificate, any related court paperwork, and an affidavit signed by you, the defendant, certifying that you've never had a prior record expunged and you've never been convicted in any prior or other case, because that would essentially make you ineligible. In addition to the petition to expunge, the affidavit in support, and the certificate of eligibility from FDLE, a lot of judges and most counties will require you to also submit a proposed order that the judge will ultimately sign once your petition to expunge is granted. Step 3, Judge review. In many Florida counties, expungement petitions are handled on the papers, meaning the judge will simply review the filing, the state will give their position, and the documents can be signed without a hearing even having to take place. That's one reason the process can move quicker than people expect. Step 4. Agencies will clear the record. Once the judge signs the order to expunge, that order is sent to the arresting agency, to FDLE, the county sheriff's office, etc. And this is the moment most people care about. That is the goal, to have this arrest and case no longer show up in typical background checks the way that it did before. Now, here's the important part. Expungement is quick when done right, but quick does not mean easy. The most common delays come from avoidable mistakes. Here are some common mistakes that can slow everything down. Now, let me save you months of frustration. Mistake number 1, not confirming eligibility first. People spend money, file paperwork, get their hopes up, and then find out they were never eligible to begin with. Florida generally limits how many times you can do this. You're limited to 1 prior sealing or expungement in your history, and that can matter a lot if you haven't checked your eligibility before you start. Mistake number 2, missing documents. This is the most common one. If you forget the final disposition, use unofficial paperwork, skip a required form, or don't do fingerprints correctly, FDLE can reject the application. Then you lose weeks just waiting to find out you were missing something to begin with. Mistake number 3, waiting too long. The longer you wait, the harder it can get to track down the right paperwork and records. If you qualify, the fastest path is usually to start as soon as your case is dismissed or resolved without a conviction. Mistake number 4, not following through after the order. See, even if the judge signs the order, you want to make sure the agencies actually process it. Paperwork can move slowly between offices. If one agency lags, your background check may still show old information for longer than it should. Now, even if you do everything perfectly, there are situations when expungement won't apply. See, expungement is powerful, but it doesn't cover everything. In general, expungement may not work if you were convicted. You've already used sealing or expunging before. In many situations, your case or supervision is still ongoing, or the charge falls into certain category that Florida law treats differently. If any of that sounds like you, don't assume you're out of options. There might be other routes, including record sealing in some scenarios. But the key is this. You want to know what you qualify for before you waste time and money chasing the wrong process. Now, let's say you do qualify and you complete the expungement successfully. What changes? And here's what life looks like after your expungement. For most people, the benefit is immediate and real. Most employers, landlords, won't see the expunge case the way that it did before. And in many everyday situations, you won't have to keep reliving that old arrest. That said, there are exceptions. Certain government-related applications, sensitive positions can require disclosure in ways ordinary jobs do not. The same can apply to certain licensing and law enforcement-related processes. But for the average person trying to move on with their life, expungement can feel like you're getting your name back. Now let's end with the most important thing people need to hear, and that is take action before it costs you more. The biggest regret I hear is simple. I should have done this years ago. They let an old charge block jobs, housing, and opportunities long after the case was over. If your Florida case was dropped, dismissed, or the prosecutor didn't file charges, expungement may be the cleanest way to erase that record. Start by confirming eligibility, collecting the correct disposition paperwork, and doing the process correctly the first time.